Just want to give a big shout out to the cricket that chirped the entire time I did this intro. You know, there's no audio software that allows you to edit out, specifically a cricket. So sorry, but it's a good intro. So enjoy the podcast. Bye-bye. Welcome to Synchronicity, a special, amazing episode with my guest this week, Asia Daashuur. Oh my gosh, Asia. She's been on the show before. She's the first psychic medium, maybe outside of like Edgar Casey, but the first one I met in real life who I implicitly trusted, and not because of anything she said or did, or it's just the way she is. It's her vibe. I also know her through her amazing husband, Justin Hopkins, who is part of the No Wave Collective. We did the Mind Wave, the Mind Pod Network No Wave collaboration a couple of years ago in LA. I'm going back to LA. It's just, everything is nice. It's good people. It's good times. There's no event. Well, there's no event scheduled yet in LA. If someone has a space and wants to get some people together to do like a podcasting, maybe a comedy thing, because I know comedians there, you know, I'll be there from November 7th to the 11th. I'm leaving the 12th. So we could potentially do something cool if you're one of those people who that applies to and can get something like that set up. But Asia, oh man, she's so cool. So I wanted to podcast with her, you know, probably starting like a few months ago. I just like, so, you know, I should talk to Asia again. She's doing cool stuff. And I follow her on Instagram. She's the spirit guide coach. And I just see what she's kind of plugged into and doing and creating these spaces where people can gather in LA and Brooklyn. And it's just very cool. And it's very impressive. And I know that she speaks to spirit guides, right? And this is our theme for this month. We had Jessa talking to her aliens and Asia talks to her spirit guides. And it's just very impressive to witness, and she's just a special person, and you can tell she's really doing some powerful work here. So she was actually in town for a workshop at the Omega Institute, which is a place I was actually hanging out before I even knew she was there. And I don't mean like I've known about it for a long time. I mean that I was actually there the week prior to we recorded this at Omega, because I was there with my family. There's a nice cafe. They have like vegan brownies. I took video on Instagram of a woodchuck and got yelled at by a guy for feeding the woodchuck, and then was like, I don't feel bad about it. He liked the brownie. And then I came back there and he was still there. It's a fun place. And they also have the Ram Dass library, which is a very big catalyst for me kind of recognizing there's some other shit going on in this world. I had some big Neem Karoli Baba synchronicities that lined up with my eventual work with Love Serve Remember, the foundation. It was just a lot of weird stuff go on in there. But I was looking for a very specific book, the 1,000 Verses or 100,000 Songs or Milarepa. And it's like a weird random book. And they have a bookstore at Omega and they didn't have it there. And so I was like, all right, I got to go somewhere else. We'll go check out this library. And I knew it would be there. And they had one book by Milarepa. And of course, that book was there. And upstairs in the library, in the Ram Dass library, they have this wall of all these gurus, these Eastern yogis and mystics. And it's just a nice place to hang out. But anyway, I digress. Asia magically popped up for a past life regression thing she was doing at Omega. And I'm like, hey, I'm 15 minutes away. Let's get her done. Oh, God, I just said get her done. Oh, boy. I might have to delete everything I just recorded on account of that, but I won't. And so we sat down. And in the middle of a field, I smoked a joint. We recorded, and no one gave us any shit. And it was just awesome. It was an amazing conversation that was timely, helpful for me, I believe helpful for her. Just one of those conversations where you can kind of feel the dynamic magic evolving as you're talking. And it was great. It's wonderful. And I'm looking forward to connecting with her and Justin. If you're around, if you're not in Cuba, when I'm in November, I'm looking forward to connecting with them. You know, life is great. Life is amazing. You need to open up to that possibility, but let's be clear about one thing. This week, we're in September 18th today, 2019. Holy shit. It's like cosmic doo-doo soup. What is cosmic duty soup? That's what we're going through. It's like on one hand, you're balancing the knowledge that you're God and an infinite creator and manifester and sustainer of your reality. On the other hand, it's like, what the fuck? It's cosmic duty soup I'm going through. I got to relive all this karmic backlash and collateral damage and, relationship stuff and money stuff. Why I got to deal with it again? And I get it. And if you're there, just know it's all good. It's the purge. We're in the fucking purge. We're in the psychic, emotional purge right now. And yeah, we want it to be comfortable. We want it to be cool and great and amazing. But you know what? Sometimes we got to go through it, and we'll appreciate it more when you're on the other side. Have faith, my friends, that there is another side and that you will experience it if you haven't before. And if you have experienced it and you feel like you lost it, you didn't lose it. It's coming back. Don't worry. It's all good in the hood. I promise you. How can I say that? How can I know that? Because you create your own reality. We collectively also co-imagine things, which is why we can recognize sometimes that it seems like we're all kind of individually going through a collective experience of karmic purging. But you don't write a shitty story for yourself. You didn't incarnate to be alive in 2019 on the cusp of 2020 to write some crap ass story for yourself. Trust me on that. So yeah, you can find Asia pretty much everywhere one would find someone these days. On Instagram at Spirit Guide Coach. She also has the Spirit House Collective, which these are physical brick and mortar places where people can get together and talk about a variety of different things. So go check her out on those platforms. You can book sessions with her, and honestly, I'm going to book a session with her. That's my endorsement, because she is so fucking incredible. You want to pay people like this when they are really effective mirrors for what you need to hear. Talking about paying for things, tarot is open. I love it. I did a reading this morning. It was amazing. We had a really good time. The cards are you. I've done 2 today. I have 1 tonight. Nothing is more clear to me that the cards are you, and you always tell yourself what you need to know. Even if consciously, sometimes you're like, what? Unconsciously, like, you're literally serving up exactly what you need to hear. People and readers are helpful because they alchemically understand the symbols and meaning behind a lot of the pictorial images, but they're just vessels for delivering yourself. The person I did earlier today, she was like, are you the gatekeeper? She was asking everyone, or are you the gatekeeper? And I was like, you're the gatekeeper and you have the key. I will deliver the key to you, but it's you delivering it to yourself. I'm stepping out of the way and telling you what you need to hear from you. So that's what tarot is. You can book that at syncpodcast.com/tarot. Go book tarot with Jessa. Go book tarot with anyone cool. I have a friend who's starting a tarot business. You'll hear about him soon. He's on another level with this shit. But tarot's just spread your energy around if you can. Just watch the magic that happens. Ramin Nazar put up an amazing cartoon and graphic today about how he's now trusting the universe and spending money, energetically. I love it. It's just this is what we're supposed to be doing. I just bought a new Oracle deck, the Threads of Fate. Hat tip to Jessa Reed for recommending it. I saw on her Instagram post, I saw a cool deck. I was like, what was that? She's like, Threads of Fate. Now it's in my hand and it's fucking cool. I highly recommend checking that out if you're into this stuff. Yeah, that's it. Asia, this podcast, rate and review. Go check out her stuff. You'll be better off for it. I promise you. That's it. Let's get to the intro you're saying, right? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Without further ado, here is Asia Daashuur.
And I was actually talking to one of my teachers, Akashic Records teachers. We were comparing it to psychic work and mediumship, and we were saying, you receive a download of something for yourself or something for someone, a client, and it ends up usually being, the rule of thumb is 2 to 3 years. So when you said 3 years, It was really interesting, because for me, I'll always hear spirits say soon, and we talk about what is soon. For me, right, soon is relative. Like right now. Right now. But for them, it's like anytime between now and 3 years, 3 to 4 years, because that's a cycle of completion that work can manifest. So I was just curious.
3 years is what I was... Basically, an astrological reading showed something that really feels spot on. Like I recently in the past 3 months when I was saying off air here. Welcome to the show, Asia.
Hi, thank you.
God. Second time, but in person.
Very exciting for me.
You magically showed up 15 minutes away from where I live in upstate New York.
I mean, meant to be, obviously, in a beautiful location.
But what we're talking about here is just to get back to me. Basically, everything started to click for me. I use these imaginal techniques to stabilize the external circumstances of my life, which I recognize were first stabilizing the internal. And then I got the reflection back of my state of consciousness. But then what started to happen is I started appropriating higher states of consciousness. And I don't even mean anything weird or esoteric. What I mean is like fearlessness, confidence, belief, just a full-bodied felt experience of ecstasy, harmony, joy, and balance. I started appropriating these states, and then more important than appropriating them and getting that little kensho, that glimpse. It sounds so egotistical, but I promise you it's not. It's satori. I stabilized almost all of these states. I do get little echoes or reverbs, especially if I get into contact with someone who's really in a negative space. I can get a little pick up on it, but for the most part, I know how to stay here and then also hold space for people who want to come here. I don't force people. It's free will. They can do whatever they want, but I've learned how to do that. And a lot of the downloads I get in that space have to do with patience, because I can move up very quickly up and down the consciousness ladder, but I recognize one of the reasons we incarnate and take bodies is so we can play with this dimensionality of time and appreciate these states where everything isn't perfect or almost perfect, because then when we are in those places in the future, how sweet. How fucking sweet.
Definitely.
So I'm trying to get into that. Yeah.
It's interesting that you're talking about patience, because that's definitely a concept that I still struggle with quite often. Even being aware of, what I've been able to change and manifest or change the trajectory of in my life, that deep-seated and definitely connected to my father idea of wanting to get where I want to go immediately versus really taking the time to enjoy the moment and the struggle and the obstacles or the joy and revelation along the way is something that I'm still working to connect with on a daily basis. And being here is definitely helping me with that. We're at the Omega Institute in Rhinebeck, by the way.
Yes, that is where we are.
It's definitely helping me take note of my environment versus the belief and pattern of perpetuating the hamster wheel.
Yeah, and belief and feeling. I mean, we'll go over some techniques in this episode that I think will be helpful for you and anyone else listening. But the shortcut for people like you and me who do like the shortcuts and just want to just live there,
Give it
right?
to me. Yeah.
Is feeling and belief. And we don't think of something, we live from it. Now, we have tools at our disposal to make that easier for us to believe and feel, because sometimes if we're taking this world, which is beautiful, as literal and overt and not metaphorically, and we look at it like the cause rather than the effect, we may get caught up pretty quickly. Because if I go inside and I imagine that I have $1 billion and I open my eyes, that $1 billion most likely is not going to be there. So it's being reflected back that, silly, what you just thought or what you just fantasized or what you just had a vision about or spoke to guides about, that is not true. You don't see it. That's a big hurdle for everyone, even people who are incredible manifestors and are essentially like living one step away from heaven on earth, right? However, when we start empirically, scientifically proving to ourselves that this is an operative power, that we are in full control of our lives, not conceptually, not intellectually, but as a felt reality, a direct experience, well, shit starts to change.
Absolutely. I love that you mentioned feeling. I feel. No, it's a fact. My entire life changed when I started to live and make decisions based on how does this make me feel versus what is the object that I want. And it sounds really simple, and because it is, but I feel like
sometimes
it's well,
it is simple.
It is. Well, spirits are always saying you can change your entire life down to your cellular structure just by a slight shift. I don't know what that slight shift necessarily is, but for me, on the ground, it was I want to live my life not trying to chase a dollar. The abundance that I want, which I feel is a big house or $1 million in the bank account. That's not what it's about. Really, what I'm looking for is freedom.
Yes.
So if I'm making decisions based on does this make me feel free, everything changes. And that abundance or that security comes.
Isn't that funny?
It's crazy.
Well, what
it's not
it
crazy.
is,
It's crazy beautiful.
It is crazy beautiful. What it is everything here is a direct reflection of your current state of consciousness. Now, that is a motherfucker if you're in a state of depression or anxiety and fear, because it's just constantly being reflected back to you. But what I'm here to say is that we have very quick, easy, reputable, free, testable ways to just up level. And there's always up leveling to be done, but I consider the main mission of the rest of 2019 is to get people to just drop all their bullshit. And I mean that for everyone. If you see Donald Trump do something objectively evil and you lose your shit, you better thank that man, because he's showing you something about yourself that you internally can correct. Then you internally have the stability you need. And then lo and behold, when that internal stability comes, that external stability comes, and then you've bared witness to these objectively evil things. And now you have the mechanisms and internal fortitude and strength to go and change them. So
yes,
we live in a world of duality, but if you can recognize everything and everyone as a projection of you, and this goes for everyone, and I know that's weird, but it's true. This world is just the best. It's even the bad states, even when someone triggers you or something happens. Like I was behind a slow guy getting here, and that used to just make me so mad. And so I'm behind this guy for like 15 minutes, and I know I don't have to be here in any rush. And I'm not getting mad, but I'm noticing each time the feelings come up of where I'm like, oh, and I'm like, all right, cool. I like his red truck, the big tires. But there came a point where normally I would have done this in frustration, but I'm on a road. I'm allowed to pass, and I just gun it. I go 70 on a 45. It's fucking great. I feel great. The guy probably has no idea what's going on. I'm not holding any grudges, and I just zoom away, and I go, wow, I'm doing the same thing that I did before, the exact same action, but I feel great now. And before, when I was angry and upset and would pass someone, I'd feel like all weird and unsettled. And I was like, that's interesting. It's the exact same action, but the way I feel and how it took place completely changed. It was like an alchemical act. And that's essentially what I'm asking people to tune into these days, and then trying to give practical ways to do that. I
think it's great that you're going to give practical ways to do that, because I don't want anyone who's listening out there that's currently in a really fucked up place, that's feeling alone or super depressed or going through serious trauma. I want to say that we're not poo-pooing that experience or saying, oh, just flick a switch and all of a sudden you can change it. I believe, yes, cerebrally and spiritually that's possible, but it might take you a while to get to that point where it is a shift that you can feel. Does that make sense?
It makes a tremendous amount of sense. And I'll say even further, adding to that, is that a lot of times we put ourselves through these horrible, sticky states, and it's not apparent while we're in them what we're doing, but then afterwards you go, oh my God, like now that I taught myself how to get out of that, I can teach anyone I see who's in that state how to do it. And not because 100%. I'm trying to like do anything, just because like I know how to do it.
100%.
So I totally get that. And I've covered mental illness in this episode and used depression as an example. I am not a depressed person. I had it happen one time, so I knew something was wrong.
Oh, wow. Well, you're talking to a master then of depression.
Well, depression's a sticky fucking thing.
Yeah.
So here are some techniques. So the first technique is really simple, and a lot of people think of The Secret and the law of attraction. And I want to just up front kind of counter, not that those work. They're real, they're stable imaginal acts, therefore they work. However, what I'm about to kind of explain, or the techniques I use, assume or presumes, this is my direct experience, that imagination precedes materiality. Therefore, we are not actually attracting anything towards us. We're not actually creating something out there and then pulling it towards us. in this physical external world, we created imaginally, essentially in higher dimensional space, whatever you want to call it, unconditioned awareness, and then we summon it forth, not even, kind of just let it unfold. It's already us. We Michelangelo this world. We pull away the parts that aren't the thing and then reveal the thing that we know. So here's how we prove this to ourselves rather than just believing a loon who has a podcast at Omega Center. So the technique is this. This took me 35 years. I famously say this all the time, or infamously. It took me 35 years to do this first step. And I weaved together a very nice life. And I still didn't know what I was doing. Is you need to find something you desire. You need to find a wish. Mm-hmm. You need to find something you really want. Now, that in and of itself can be a stumbling block for some people because they don't, they freak out. Where's the big thing? Start with something small. Mm-hmm. It could be anything. It could be a $5 bill. It could be literally anything. It could be your heart's desire. That's wonderful. Do whatever you want, but find something that you at least know that you want, right? I started with money just so people don't feel weird about that. And as you're going to sleep, you're going into a drowsy-like state, a state akin to sleep. Some people call it twilight sleep. It's that space between going to sleep and being asleep.
I love that state.
Right? It's an amazing state.
Wonderful.
I like it because cannabis shifts you into it while you're awake so you can lucidly control the dream. You don't actually have to be asleep. It's pretty great. She's wonderful. So you find this liminal boundary, and then you construct a scene in your imagination, and I'll cover the visual one first. In your imagination, if you don't know what I'm talking about, close your eyes and imagine you're at the beach. Do you see it? That's what I'm talking about. That's it. Nothing more complicated than that. But as you're in this twilight sleep, this liminal boundary, you're going to create a very short and compact scene that implies the wish has already been fulfilled. Not the means of how it will happen, not the where, the when, the why, the how, none of that. Just a scene following the wish being fulfilled. You're going to have in this scene, very short, very compact, you're going to load it with the same sensory vividness as this world. And most importantly, you're going to embed the feeling of how you would actually feel if the wish had been fulfilled. That's all you're going to do. After that, you can go to sleep. You can wake up if you're doing this as like a sitting meditation. If you're doing it wide awake while smoking weed, you can just let it go. From there, you wake up the next day. Let's say you went to sleep. Don't take any extra steps to make your wish become true. You can do the regular shit that you were going to do anyway. That's totally cool. The reason you don't take those steps is your logical and analytical mind will immediately step in when this happens and say, oh, well, that happened because X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. What really will happen if you carry around this felt feeling, this wish fulfilled, lightly like a fragrance, it will unfold in this world. And it will unfold pretty much like 99.9%, if not 100%, exactly the way you imagined it. If it's like 50% there, that's not it. That's a trick. Don't pay attention to that. But when you keep walking into these states over and over and over and over and over and over again, at a certain point, you just give up. You're like, fuck it. Okay, This is how the world works. And then you do this dance, or at least in my experience, which is, holy shit. If this is really how this world works, if this is the effect and my imagination is the cause, I think I'm responsible for fucking everything. Like literally everything, including the people who get me angry or the situations or the times someone cut me up, whatever it is. And that is an unsavory, anathema-like thought to the part of us that's trying to protect us. We as individuals have a very difficult time, or have had a difficult time, I should say, managing our own lives as an individual and our relationships and all the things around. To assume and appropriate all of it, the mind doesn't like that proposition. It's fine. I'm here to tell you it's totally fine when you do it. But that technique in terms of future states is incredibly powerful. But since you're here for past life regression, I want to talk about one more. It's called revision.
Well, I just want to add that I'm going to use that because we started this conversation because the narrative I've been perpetuating lately is that my flights when traveling will either be canceled or delayed. And it takes me always around between 18 to 24 hours to travel from California to New York. So I'm going to do that. And I travel back to California in about a week and a half. I already totally believe I will have a completely different and much more positive experience.
And here's the thing about all travel. Everything in this life is a metaphor. We look at it overtly. We take it literally. But when you start physically and externally having smoother flights, watch the relationship between your internal and external world and everything you do, because now you can travel smoothly and efficiently. It's a reflection of your internal state. So now whenever you want to do anything, once you see the external reality, or even before, once you feel it right now, just watch what happens. It's pretty incredible. But I do want to talk about this revision stuff because this is a block that I think a lot of people are dealing with right now. It was certainly one that popped something open for me, which is trauma.
Yeah.
So trauma is something that sometimes those of us who have not had physical or sexual trauma don't think about trauma, but like everyone experiences trauma. It's a collision and friction and tension that's created because of an expectation or feeling that wasn't matched by our reality. And that's just a thought schism. That's all. It's not anything more than that. But we all have these incidents that we can go back to and find a situation that creates shame or doubt or fear, or you acted out of anger or any of these things. And so the revision technique is exactly the same thing. Is you go back to the scene imaginally, and even if it's painful, and I know it can be, you build up the scene again, except this time you change it. You make it, you acted the best possible way. The people in the situation were the best versions of themselves. And you keep replaying a shorthand, I'll say, for revision. You can expand it a little bit, but shorthand version, short scene, imaginally, with the feeling in the past how you would have felt. It's going to feel weird and silly at first, maybe. And then afterwards, when you do this, just watch what happens in external reality. First, your consciousness will change. You'll get an external situation that was literally the karmic pattern replayed in front of your fucking face. And you're going to start feeling like you're doing the same shit. But then you'll notice there's something in your head that's like, wait a second, I think this is a karmic situation that I have the ability to break right now. And then you may even fight that, but it doesn't matter because you've already done it in the past. You've healed it. So it will naturally unfold. Even if you fight it the whole way, kicking and screaming, it's going to happen. And it uses the prism-like function of the mind where you cast a light on it. This is this unconditioned awareness, this sense of I am. You cast a light on it through this prism backwards in time, and you just heal shit. It's insane because that will then start healing external situations because internally you've done it.
Yes.
So these are the shortcuts that like, and it's fucking crazy. Like you just keep doing this shit and it just keeps working. Like, and don't take my word for it. Empirically test it. Yeah.
No, I totally believe you. I've done some, I've done quite a bit of current life healing by, again, spirits are always telling me and telling other people around me, just go back because you're still that child. You're still that, in
of
utero.
Course.
You're still, watching your parents before they even get together. You can go back to any time and start to heal that. And it is going to affect you right in your present. And then of course, obviously you're affecting yourself in the future.
You multi-dimensionally pull all of your cells together.
Yeah. I had posted something on Instagram, I think 7 or 8 months ago about interdimensional healing. And then you had commented on the post because was at a retreat and a spirit in the house had said, I want you to focus on interdimensional healing. I was like, I don't know what the fuck
what is
is.
That,
what the
weirdo?
Fuck is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you said, God, what's that Netflix show with Natasha Lyonne? Oh, you commented and said Russian doll. And I was like, yes, that's exactly. You're healing. Excuse me. You're healing yourself in multiple dimensions when you're healing yourself in your current dimension, or you can go back. Well, that's a whole nother thing. You can go into interdimensions.
So what happens is here's what the trajectory is. You basically get your karmic balance, and I just want to be clear about karma and past lives and all of these things. My conception of reality, and I can't disprove it yet, and I've tried, is that stable imaginal acts create reality. Therefore, anything we collectively believe in as real emerges as real. Therefore, modalities like astrology, Hinduism, Buddhism, these things that have been imaginally stabilized for millennia or hundreds of years are real. That's why I say the law of attraction, which I don't think the operative principle is totally sound, still works. It's why people who you can look at them from afar and be like, those people are fucking nuts, but they're getting results. What the hell is going on? So when we talk about things about past lives, on one level, I take them as very real and know that they exist. But on another level, I almost completely disregard them because it shifts my attention away from where I am now. And if my work now is to heal multidimensionally all versions of myself, the specific knowledge and awareness may be helpful, but the broader awareness that I can just fix this shit right now and stabilize it here is more important. You'll definitely find out all the cool shit about past lives anyway. It's inevitable.
I love past lives. I love storytelling.
I don't know. So talk to me about past lives.
Well, okay. So we're here at the Omega Institute because I am taking the past life regression therapy course with Dr. Brian Weiss, who many of you may already know wrote the very famous past life regression book, Many Lives, Many Masters. It was published in 1988 about a patient he saw in 1980 when he was a psychotherapist, psychoanalyst, who, when he put her under hypnosis to try to heal or come to the root of certain issues she was having in this life, she was recounting events from previous lives, and he wasn't a believer in past lives at the time. So he's basically built this whole career on helping anyone be able to go back into their own past lives to find out where the root of certain patterns, triggers, fears, anxieties come from, so that you can clear them and move forward in this current life. Basically, closure. I definitely believe that you can do a lot of this without having to go back to a past life completely, but the power of storytelling and story is so strong. And there's something really beautiful about being able to go back and see yourself as a nurse, or, a beggar, or who knows,
a different gender,
a different gender, a politician, a different country, a different culture, and be able to see the similarities and to really realize on a much deeper level that we are all the same. We all go through the same things. And we all have the same fears and anxieties and doubts, and then be able to free yourself from that specific thread and move forward. So I'm here basically to learn how to do that, because not just to do that because I see clients and can see their past lives all the time, but to give the client the ability to walk through those lives themselves, and then create a sense of agency, which is super important. Of we can heal ourselves. I'm not a healer. I'm a practitioner. I'm just trying to connect you to ways that you can heal yourself. So that's why I'm here.
Well, I'm sold on the past lives now, and I want to do it. I'm not joking. I'm not just saying that lightly. It sounds amazing. And I've tuned into past lives that I've had in the past, but more as a felt thing, not like, actual confirmation. But I think that speaks to my current or past level of conception of what they were more than anything. But what was the last thing your way of healing it. Yes. The age of the guru is just about finito. We got about a few more months. I keep saying a few more months.
Yes,
it really is a few more months.
You said 3 months.
3 months. Yeah, 2020 we're shifting. I know it's like weird and obvious, but it's happening. It's happening.
Can you actually elaborate? Because in this course I'm taking, the word guru has come up quite a bit. And every time I hear the word guru, or even if someone in my community says, you have aspects of a guru, my whole body starts to tense up and cringe. Okay. So I'd love for you to elaborate more on your idea of guru and look, I'm interviewing you, and the idea of it coming to a close.
So this is actually, I'm really happy you asked this, because when we first met here, I told you I was reading the 1,000 Songs of Milarepa, and all of his songs start, and he's someone who famously just like straight up shortcutted everyone spontaneously with songs about the true nature of Dharma. Demons, everyone. It's fucking amazing. And every single one of his songs start with devotion to his guru, Marpa. And Marpa, for Milarepa, was a dick, like the biggest dick ever. He'd be like, Marpa, build this huge stone tower right here. You have to build it's going to take you like hundreds of years. So he'd build it. And he'd go, dude, he'd show him and he'd go, dude, you built it 10 feet off the wrong spot, knock it down, do it again. He made him do this 3 times, and after that, he reached enlightenment. And that's a good metaphor. Milarepa had famously been a murderer and a sinner and like a bad person who had done things, but he achieved enlightenment in one lifetime. Anyway, so here's the guru question. The age of the guru, when I say it's dying, I mean if you're externalizing your real power to anything or anyone besides you, that ain't going to work for you.
Yes.
It's just not going to work for you. Now, here's the other side of the token, and I have my friend Carrie McLean, mother of Kelly, who's wonderful and studied with Chogyam Trungpa, and that is a big devotional guru. Tibetan Buddhism has its problems, but it's very big on guru. So the flip side of the coin is, if you can find a spiritual friend and find qualities in them that you know are pure, you trust implicitly that what they're saying and what they're doing is for the benefit of everyone, that's a very powerful relationship. I would just personally feel for most people, the more beneficial relationship will be recognizing it within just now. Like you can still do it, but as a modality, it's fraught with so many perils in this world. If you take this world to be literal and then go try to find a guru, you're fucked. You're dunzo, because you may even find a good person. Like if someone comes to me for advice, I'll let them give themselves advice through me, so that's helpful. But like they're gonna do it themselves. That's what a good teacher or anyone friend does, and say, you know how to fix this. Let me show you that you know. Socrates did it. Everyone cool did it. So that's what I mean, like, by the age of the guru is dying, is like the real teachers and people who can own that word. And it's something I resisted for a long time, but it's cool teaching in fun ways. The real teachers are going to be the ones who are just constantly reinforcing, don't take my word for it, prove it yourself.
Exactly.
Don't take my word for it,
Yes.
prove it yourself.
Yes.
So that's what I mean when I say the age of the guru is dying. Like, that's all.
That's all.
That's all.
I think it's a pretty big deal. I mean, the idea that, we've been taught even through, religions, that we must go somewhere for revelation or for peace or to be cleansed of our sins. The idea that you can do that all yourself, I think it's pretty revolutionary and radical, and I love it.
It's the truth.
It is
what
the truth.
It is. I worked in, I don't know why I'm sharing this, but I will share it here. I worked in the spiritual realm and saw a lot of how people were motivated by the same fears and insecurities around money and ego and fame as any other walk in life, and who outwardly just seem like the perfect vehicle for Dharma. And that's also embedded in this age of guru thing I'm talking about. I think when I use the term pejoratively, I watch myself and make sure I'm not getting too, judgy. But B, there are people who consistently speak. Like, you can go to any class here at Omega. You can listen to any number of talk from a great master and parrot and ape the words. And basically, like, people will believe you. Like, you can trick, especially if you can trick yourself, you can trick everyone else. The age of people like that living comfortably is pretty much coming to an end. And I saw this start to play out in organizations, and I wish all of those people nothing but love, and I'm sure they're going to be okay. But like, it is truthfully, like, be very careful about preaching this stuff and not living it, because you're playing with something you don't understand. And you want to be sure if you're following someone, they're not one of those people.
I completely agree. And those great teachers out there, I just wanted to add this, and this is, I think, a thread that's woven into all of the major religions as well. They're all saying variations of the same thing, which means we're all obviously on the same wave of consciousness, which means that you have access to all of this information on your own. Anyway. Karma, you reap what you sow. It's the same variation of different variation of the same principle. All of these ideas that are woven into religions are things that we can access at any time, and different teachers are going to be, as you said, parroting, but believing and walking that life. They're the same laws, so it's easily accessible, and you don't need someone to hand them to you. You can grab them yourself.
And I mean, I'm realizing very quickly, as kind of like I wake up to different like things I used to know, like the tarot is one of them. And
I've been noticing that.
Yeah, and
I'm
astrology.
excited you brought them.
Yeah, I brought them. Definitely.
There's a beautiful wooden box here that he flipped open with his deck inside.
And weed. That's what I opened it for.
And some pot. Yeah.
But I'm realizing now that like people talk about the Akashic Records, and yes, there are levels of ourselves that are not going to be recorded in digital space. But like, if you want to learn about something, like you can immediately, and not in some like, let me plug into the mainframe of the universe and get a mystical download, although that's available too. But like, Google it, Wikipedia it, and then like I've been finding out everything about like, you know, the relationship of the planets to the Greek deities and then the Roman planets and like all of these like deep symbolic things, and like shit is just awesome. So like all I'm saying is like we now, not even in a esoteric sense, have access to all states, but like knowledge is freely available. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's pretty phenomenal right now. I mean, I have a vision of something and I can just type a couple words into Google and go down the wormhole and find a connection to it.
Right?
Yeah.
Like I just think it's an amazing time to be alive. So when you talk to guides, right? What does that feel like for you psychically and any other feelings associated?
You know what? I am so glad you asked that.
Good.
You are just obviously psychic as well. First of all, everybody is psychic.
Yeah,
I just want to say that everyone's psychic. But I was just thinking about this during class the other day. The way it feels, because again, the class I'm taking, you're learning hypnosis techniques, which basically is you're learning variations of trance. How to step into trance, which is also obviously meditations. Trance is a form of trance. When you're washing the dishes, you kind of get in that zone, which is also a type of hypnosis and trance. When you're driving, all of a sudden you're almost at your house. You don't remember like going through 3 lights. That's a level of hypnosis and trance.
Yes.
So I was thinking about the way it feels when I am talking to different spirits, and I was noticing that there are certain parts of my brain and head that certain voices will kind of come through. If I'm speaking to you right now, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. And then if I take a moment and I breathe, because at this point, from doing it so often, so long, I can, I'm getting downloads all the time, but if I want to pick up a certain voice, I can just take a deep breath. And my main guide, Monty, I'll hear him almost at the top, left part at the top of my head. I hear a voice coming through. When I am, talking to my subconscious will say, don't eat that cookie. It comes in almost as a band in the middle of my head. Now, this is just my experience. Other mystics and psychics can have a different experience, but I notice different voices coming in at different points of my head, or obviously, right by my right ear, and then obviously the clairvoyance will send me visuals as well.
Visuals.
Yeah.
That is really interesting that they're in different. So the voices do feel like they're coming from different areas.
Yeah, around
That's
the crown.
So cool.
The crown of my head. Yes, which I
never thought to notice that. I never thought to notice that.
It's because I'm here and I have the time, which I'm working on. Speaking of manifesting and making your life through, like I'm working on noticing the little things and being present.
Stillness.
Versus just the stillness versus moving on to the next moment.
That's our lesson. Just so you're aware, like our lesson for people like you and me and very sensitive and attuned people and can feel big vibrational shifts collectively and internally is because we're like, we know what the fuck is going on. We know. Our real lesson right now seems to be patience and stillness and humbleness. And those are the, it's like medicine. It's like all the medicine at first that you take, like it's just gross and you don't want to take it.
Yes.
Like, but we're giving it to ourselves, and you luckily, not luckily, you did it to yourself. You know exactly what you're doing. You put yourself right here, which I can tell you, having lived here for the past 3 years, you have no choice but to surrender to the patience and the just beauty and stillness of nature. And then when you're quiet, especially if you're living somewhat in an urban area, everything just starts to flow. And you're like, oh, shit, I forgot about this. And then you balance it, right? I don't think it's one is better than the other. It's not the grass is greener, although it's very green here.
It is very green here.
And they mowed it like perfectly down the line. Like they did such a good.
It's beautiful.
It is green here, but the truth is that you balance the light and the dark. So I wanted to talk a little bit about this because this has been an emerging theme in my life, which is, so I've primarily operated from the feminine and the light aspects of my being. And I recently got in touch, coincided with this awakening with the darker and masculine aspects. The masculine actually was quite beneficial. It helped me stabilize myself, but the darker aspects threw me for a loop for a little bit. So what are your thoughts and what do your guides have to say about people dealing with shadow aspects of their personality that maybe have laid dormant or they've suppressed? What's going on with that for you?
Wow. Okay. Okay. So shadow. I mean, the first thing that I'm hearing, and this is not going to be news to most of you, but the shadow are just aspects of self that you haven't given yourself time to explore because of fear.
As a bee comes right near me.
Fear is what controls the shadow. But really what happens is when you release yourself and embrace the shadow, you become one with all aspects of who you truly are. You're able to accept that any pieces of yourself that were not able to ascend into the light were being kept hidden for a reason until you were able to actually bring them up and see them for what they truly are, which is knowledge. Which is, in a way, knowledge is an aspect of enlightenment. So some people never embrace their shadow. It's okay. And that's okay. It's not their point to do so in this lifetime. But if you are able to grasp onto your shadow and hold on to it tightly, the rewards, the richness, the feeling of completion and peace is inevitable.
You guys know what's up, man. That's exactly right. That's exactly been my direct experience. And I think it's the blueprint for how to drop the fear and recognize that the aspects that we keep hidden from ourselves are just what you said. We haven't cast light on them. So therefore it's like the monster under your bed. Yes. Right? Yeah. Yes. Oh, your guides. I love how I can see what you were doing there. I caught on to it like halfway through how you're basically, I get it. Okay. No, I get it too. All right. So you're precursory letting your unconscious and guides come through you and then consciously apprehending and translating almost instantly, right? I mean,
yes. Sometimes I get the words confused, so I have to take an extra second.
Yeah.
A second or two. But for the most part, I want to kind of whisper it to myself first. Yeah. It's like a translator. It's like coming down and then it comes out. Sorry, they're talking about you right now.
Yeah,
but
what are they saying?
They're just saying. Well, we can talk about it off. It's not like they're just into the conversation. They're like, we want to talk more about you and about what you want in this life.
Yeah, I'm pretty.
Because they're saying you're descended from a long line of those who want to change the world.
Oh yeah, we're doing it.
And you can change the world from the ground, and they're showing like what is it called? Those things of weevils or dust balls. They're saying they're showing various versions of you, and I don't know if this is literal versions of you or those like you, but you're human forms, and then you're becoming this big ball of energy.
Yeah.
That rolls through the world, not as destruction, but as evolution.
Yeah.
And it's tiring at times.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm actually pretty cool. You know what's weird is I stopped emotionally eating for the most part. I exercise. I run like 3-4 miles every morning. I eat healthy. I've got to drink more water. I've never felt better.
Those logical things that you know are going to change your life when you do them. I need to get on your kick.
I couldn't do it before. Oh, you're good. Don't worry. It'll happen inevitably. The people like you get it usually within a week. Definitely before the end of the year, you tap into it and you just roll with it because you recognize, should I really? No, we're not going to do the promise today. This stuff gets very can get very kind of religious and metaphysical, and I try to stay away from that in all of the conversation. Not like I don't want to do it in all of the conversations, because we're dealing with some spiritually lofty concepts now, and people, the promise stuff is essentially, I'll just give the whole thing and not talk about it, is that you're God. You're legitimately God.
You did.
I started with
earlier.
you. I started right off the bat.
I think 30 seconds into our conversation, he said, well, you're God, right?
I said, you're in control. It's just you.
Yeah,
the universe
everything
is you.
The universe is you. Right. And something that I know we're not going to talk about it, but that I love that you said is, there's the big I and the little I.
Rastafarianism.
Yeah.
God bless. Where do you think I got it from? Through strict biblical interpretation. That's how they got it.
That's a beautiful concept to really think about and unpack. Big I and little I.
Just live from it. It's amazing. It's like jumping into like a Marvel superhero's body at first, and then you get a little freaked out because you're like, what the? Because I say this, I always wanted to be Magneto when I was younger, who's a villain of all things, but he just had incredible power. So I'd take like the wrong side of the tape that's not sticky, but it's magnetic, and I'd be like, oh, I'm Magneto. And what I realized is when you really wake up to who you are, when everyone does, it's better. It's way better. It's like you don't even know. You think that's cool, but you're like Professor X. You're like every possible incarnation of the best mutant ever, and you use it benevolently and lovingly, and that's the whole secret. And then you can drop all your fear. You don't have to worry about shit. It's the best. Yeah,
I like that that you recounted that story about being Magneto, because the desire for everyone, I'm not going to say everyone, for most of humanity, I want to be unique. I want to have gifts without really connecting to the gifts that they actually already have.
And I think gifts are different for everyone. What I would like people to recognize is your desires you're serving them up. A larger aspect of yourself is serving them up as paths for you to become who you are. So some of them fizzle out, but that's your choice. And if you really don't want them to fizzle out, you can. Like as much as things are determined, free will is a thing. You can dimensionally, the techniques I mentioned, like, prove to yourself that this is malleable. Prove to yourself that this is a dream. Prove to yourself that there is not some set of coordinates that you have to do. You may arrive at the same place at the end, but you got a lot of leeway in between. And these techniques do that. But every one of your desires, even if they seem wrong, and this is where I have to point out that if you have the desire to kill someone or rape someone or do something horrible, you're misapprehending what's going on. No one has the desire to do any of those things. What they have is, in the case of murder, is to be free of that person. There's something that they view them as the obstacle to their happiness, to their peace, to their money, to whatever. And they misapprehend, so they kill the person. They have no idea what they're doing. It's wrong. And rape is just domination and power, and they feel powerless, so they try to go after it. And all of these stealing, same thing. Yeah. But the truth is like all of the desires at the root of those things will lead you to your own power, which you will eventually use benevolently. And then we all get to move into like, do you know how awesome this place is going to be in like 10, 15 years? People think it's going down the fucking tubes.
They do.
But it's so the opposite.
And I just want to say I understand
it looks
why.
Horrible. It looks horrible.
Why? And when I've talked to my guides about that, because I do have those moments where I turn on the news and
Amazon's fucking burning.
Oh yeah, and you just feel this. You feel like your heart is breaking.
It's good.
And sorry, I heard something just now.
What do they say?
It's all so we can reset and restart.
Exactly. You break to let the light in. You got to break it, and
also fire burns for renewal.
Yeah.
I am still heartbroken. Okay, but what I'm hearing is that this is all just the precursor to birth.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We've been in this gestational stage now for what feels like maybe 8 years about, and we oscillate between different versions of reality. And now that we're kind of like, at least I know now how to move up and down quickly. I'm holding space. This was revealed to me by a friend. She's like, oh, you're a space holder. That's what you are. I'm just like, hey, we're good. Like, we're good. I'm telling you, like, if you're hearing this, if you read this shit, and like, we're good. Like, we're good. And I know it may not seem like that, and that may counter with some versions of reality right now, but it's a reflection of your state of consciousness. And, you know, this is, here's where we're going with this. So I recently came to the realization about dead people. So
Okay.
I realized that if imagination creates reality, and what we imagine in our head precedes materiality, then when I imagine someone who's no longer with us, that's them. That's them. That's totally them. Now, here's the thing. If you really are doing it and talking with the real version of them, you'll know it and you won't question it. If you're creating a fabrication, it's still them. You just don't get what's going on.
I love that you said that. And I might have said this during our last interview, but one of my guides just reminded me that I was walking to the coffee shop and I was passing by a tree, and I thought I saw someone that wasn't there under the tree. And that, look, in my line of work, that happens all the time. But I remember thinking, oh, that was just, you know, something in my peripheral. It wasn't actually a spirit. And one of my guides said, everything you imagine is real.
Yeah.
And I started laughing, and he said, everything you imagine is real.
Yeah.
It's all real.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm going to admit that I don't really have a great grasp of what that, I mean, I have a basic grasp of what that means, but the concept of the concept that everything is real, everything that you imagine is real.
That's true.
Is kind of mind-boggling for me.
So you just led me to the purpose of why we stabilize our minds and drop our baggage right now. That's true. One of the wonderful things about the dimensionality of time and where we are, when we think of something, it doesn't immediately happen. Some people may say that, oh, well, I want it to. Well, yeah, what if you think of something horrible? You don't want it to happen right away, dingus. So we're training ourselves to get familiar with this. So we basically use our self-discipline and control. This is what we're doing now. We have these emotional reactions to external situations, ranging from Donald Trump to family to partners, to our internal reactions relative to any one of those things. And we're now learning how to stabilize that, because what is happening is the realization that everything we imagine is true will now be reflected externally. So we're going to have scientific breakthroughs.
Yes.
We're going to have huge shifts in the way money works and communication works. And we're already seeing this reflected in kind of how people think about gender and a spectrum. And it's not that this is a new concept. It's been around. The Native Americans had multiple genders outside of just the binary too. But this is now, all of the boundaries are blurring. And for people who aren't aware that this is happening, it's basically hell on earth. It's like, what the fuck? God, yeah. It's like, how dare you?
Which is why you see, you know, certain types of people grasping to retain the status quo.
Right.
Because it's again, all fear-based.
It's so scary because if you didn't know, and I saw this, I had visions. I didn't know there were visions like 16, 17 years ago. I thought it was crazy. Lo and behold, I knew people who clung to the Newtonian only version of this world were in for uncomfortableness. But yeah, everything you imagine is real. Everything you imagine is real. Everything you constantly, what this world is an effect of a seed you planted somehow. And when you recognize that, you can also recognize if you planted a seed and it was a invasive weed that's going to strangle a tree, you can dig it up.
Absolutely.
Dig it up.
If you're, I mean, that's also ties into the concept of psychic hooks and psychic attacks. You're like, oh, I'm getting these visions of something horrible, violence.
Yes.
That is not necessarily something that's coming from your imagination or the concepts of spirits or energies that are around you. You're picking up stuff. I think we were just talking before we started this interview, because your optimism and buoyancy, we were talking about, you know, some people feel the world is on fire. And a lot of us who are awake, I call it being awake, are feeling the energy of heartbreak and pain and frustration and anger of the things that are rippling out throughout the world. You're feeling it in your body, and you might be picking up on that in your dreams or throughout your day.
Yeah. Dreams.
Or visions or what have you.
Visions. Dreams, when you go to sleep and have like regular dreams, they're undisciplined imaginal acts. And what I mean by that is I got a lot of this stuff from Neville Goddard, but he described it as, you know, when we intentionally set an imaginal act, like the wish fulfilled. And the other thing I didn't mention about that, always from your own perspective in that imaginal scene. This is not a movie you're watching. It's not you watching yourself climb a ladder. It's from you climbing the ladder from within. That is critically important because that's our perspective here. we play the POV game. So that's why you want to shift into it, feel it. That's very important. But yeah, I lost my train of thought for a second. It'll come back.
I can't help you, unfortunately, because you say something and immediately it brings up something else. No, I've lost it. Wait, what was I just thinking about? Imagination. Oh, it's gone. I think we both crashed at the same time. Yeah,
we did it to ourselves. I guess we could. Should we wrap? I mean, we could literally talk infinitely about this stuff, but I want to. I'm going to come to LA and we'll talk about it there.
I would love that.
I'm going to end with my 3 silly-ish questions and the one broader one. And if anything, if we remember during that, we can talk about what we wanted to say.
I think I just remembered
boom, I knew it happened.
The difference between dreams and visions.
There we go.
Yeah. There's definitely a difference. And for those of you who've experienced visions, I'm sure you all can attest to this. A vision, this gets complicated because we talked about imagination, reality, and everything in your imagination is real. Visions have a different feeling than a dream.
Yeah.
A dream is, has a feeling of being insubstantial, whereas a vision feels like a separate lane or aspect of reality.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say that for all of you to chew on.
Let me share a vision I had.
Yeah.
So when you're doing these imaginal techniques in twilight sleep realm, stuff will intrude. You'll get visions. I had no idea what a real vision was until I had my first one, and this was the vision. And I've shared this, and this was this helped me get through every negative connotation I had with the word ego and the concept of ego. So I was trying to imagine something, some act that I wanted in this world. And all of a sudden I find myself in the middle of a forest at night, and there's a fire, just like kind of like there'd be a fire like around this circle.
There's some burnt logs a few feet away.
It's kind of weird. Okay, that's a little weird. Okay. I also feel, okay, that's weird. But anyway, I was in this forest. It was at night. Luckily, it's not at night. Then I'd be really freaked out. And there's a fire in the middle, and I'm near it, and I see circling around me a wolf, like a real legit wolf. And when when you're in a vision or when you're in a imaginal state, you're there. You're not here in your body like, I'm asleep right now. You're there. So normally my reaction in this world or any other world would be fearful. Like, holy shit, there's a motherfucking wolf. Like, what the fuck? So it's going around, it's circling, it's getting closer, but I'm not afraid. For whatever reason, I'm not afraid. It's circling, it's snarling, it's snapping. I'm like, oh, this shit might bite my arm off for real. Gets close. I was like, oh, sit. Had it sit next to me, started petting it gently. Then I started cuddling with it and loving it like it was my dog. And then right when I did that, I said, holy shit, it's my ego.
God, my God. I literally, when you're describing the wolf, one of my guides said, he is the wolf. He is the wolf.
So
sorry.
No, it's amazing. So I realized this and I was like, oh my God. Cause like, you hear a lot in the new age communities and these, places in Omega like that. It's like, people are like, silence the ego, make the ego, shut it up, kill the ego, all of these things. And I think people don't recognize what was really being emphasized in the traditions, the Eastern traditions, when they talk about the ego is non-attachment. That's one aspect of it. But if that's your buddy, if that's your fucking dog, if that's the thing that's going to go and do things for you and protect you, that's all it wants to do. The reason it's snarling and going around you is it's on high alert because it thinks the world is out to get it. But when you recognize it's not and it's your buddy, your ego isn't this thing to be like, oh, but stupid ego. It's like, holy shit, ego, thank you.
Similar to Shadow.
Exactly.
Blowing minds left and right over here.
Yeah, I'm glad we didn't end it. I knew it. See, I've learned in this reality that if I forget something, that I'll just operate as though I'll remember it, but just like try to trick my unconscious that I'm not going to talk about it.
Works every time.
This brings me one aspect that before we get to the end, that I do want to talk about too. Masculine and feminine energies.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Okay. So balancing these is what I see as the primary goal. And I just want to relate it to the imaginal thing so we can build a bridge there. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do, build a bridge between the conscious and the subconscious. The conscious mind is selective, aware, personal, and masculine. Okay, that's the conscious mind. That's our state of consciousness. It's relatively small compared to the unconscious. The unconscious is impersonal, non-selective, receptive, and eventually gives birth to whatever was implanted with it. So we use the conscious mind to be aware of a desire.
Mm-hmm.
We use it lovingly. We implant it in the subconscious with these techniques or any other modality we want to use. The feminine quality accepts it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's impersonal and non-selective. And I stay here for a reason, because this explains why it's a neutral principle. It's not, in the world of duality, always good. It doesn't give a shit. If you tell your subconscious, I'm depressed, if you tell the feminine ass, if you implant that in the feminine, it's going to birth depression. It does not care.
Yes.
So you want to be very aware of how you use these bridges and modalities. Inner talk.
Mm-hmm.
Just get that shit on point.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to bring that up, because I'm sure you experience different polarities of energy when you're, what does that feel
for
like?
depression, you mean? Or for
for you,
for
when you're
feminine,
speaking to guides, masculine, feminine, what is that like?
Well, you mean masculine and feminine guides versus genderless guides?
Yeah. The spectrum.
Well, I'll talk about that, but something you said reminded me about the talk about, if you say to yourself, I'm depressed, then your unconscious can give bloom to that.
I am.
And I've had guides tell me, because I do, and I'm not going to say suffer. Actually, my guides talk to me about the word suffer from depression. Sometimes I am depressed. That the idea is that there's a certain point in time in this reality where if you don't shift the energy, you fall deeper into that state.
That's right. It gets stickier.
So yes, so you have to be aware of that shift for, I think they've been telling me recently, it's 4 to 6 days. If you've allowed something, a feeling or energy that's lower vibrational or negative to lapse for that amount of time, you're creating a pattern in your brain and your subconscious that this is acceptable behavior. Again, not to dilute anyone that's going through depression or anything bad, but it's about what can I do to shift it and to change lanes. So when it comes to masculine and feminine energy with spirits, my two main guides happen to be masculine energy.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Which, and honestly, from what I've seen in my experience, one of them is actually very, very calm. I go to him, his name is Charles, when I need to relieve some pressure, but my other guide, Monty, is very full of fire.
Yes.
So I've equated
Yes.
that masculine energy to fire and doing, even though one of my male guides is much calmer. The female guides or spirits that I come into contact with, and I'm just going to say I have been doing them a disservice because I have not talked to them as often as I should.
You're balancing. It's okay.
It's all coming together. It's all coming together. But they come in a lot when they come in when I'm having experiences of quote unquote forgetting who I am.
Yes.
And forgetting who I am means forgetting the concept of being connected to all.
Yeah.
So the masculine is concerned with what are you doing now on the ground, and the feminine is concerned or hoping and working to connect you with, and you are all.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. Yeah. That's why I asked you, and you rephrased it a perfect way.
Mm-hmm.
So the last technique I'll give before, because I think this is going to be one that's useful for you, is to drift into a state of non-duality. As you're in twilight sleep, just keep repeating, I am, I am, I am, I am, I am. Just keep doing that until you really shift into like, oh, I didn't even know it could be like this. That is the space in which to implant all of your deepest, most benevolent and loving desires, because that's the unconscious, which again, like, we're living in the age where the feminine is being outwardly expressed it's just going crazy right now. It's just going nuts.
Yeah.
And the truth is that it does require that masculine balance, because we're going to have a lot of overcorrection because she's upset. She's like, what the fuck? Look what you did to me. The Amazon fire, you fucking idiots.
Mm-hmm,
what are you doing? I'm one of you. I'm you ding-dongs, right?
Yeah.
And so what I do recommend is for people who now in the next 3 months or in the future get carried away by their emotional and unconscious urges is to recognize that we do have a conscious level of direction here. It is masculine. You described to me the paternal kind of, you know, I don't want to, authoritative has the wrong connotation, but like authoritative in the way like, calm down, it's all good.
Yeah.
Like it's all good. Like when my kid freaks out, I'm like, dude, it's fine. Like, what are you freaking out about? Like, it's totally fine. You're spazzing for no reason. That's what I'm referring to. Not like, you do this now. Although sometimes there's that too. But I think it makes a lot of sense to me that you would be balancing. Do you know your astrological signs? Your sun, moon, and rising?
Aquarius, Leo, Cancer.
Rising, Cancer, moon. I'm Cancer sun.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Sagittarius moon. I'm learning about astrology too. Okay, now we're going to end it so you can comfortably get to the next session. What's your favorite color?
Why did I just sigh? I think I sighed because I'm still connected to spirit, and they said all colors when you asked that question. But you know what? But you know, then the next thing that popped up is wow. Because I'm so sorry.
No.
I was going to say white, and then they just said because white is absence of color, which means all color as well.
So big I says all color. You try to get around it. Little I says white. They say no, all color.
It's all color.
Got it.
Yeah.
Great answer. Best answer I've gotten so far, by the way. Appreciate it, guys, as well. Favorite number?
My favorite number is 3.
Cool.
Yeah.
What's their favorite number since they're trying to get...
they're talking the whole time, but I'm obsessed with pyramids.
Yes.
Triangles, 3 sides.
Hilma Af Klimt. The triangle, I have that above my, it's like a thing behind me all the time. Yeah, she's great.
Also obsessed with her.
Did you see her thing at the Guggenheim?
I did, and her documentaries just was released in Germany, so I can't wait to see it when it's released here.
Favorite animal?
Right now, I have a lot of animals that I love.
Of course.
It's been my animal guide, Sam, who's a tiger for quite a long time.
Cool.
So it's been a tiger for about 6 to 8 months.
Cool. Is that an eagle or what is that?
This is an eagle.
Cool.
But I say it's a raven.
But I saw that it's an eagle. I saw right through that ruse.
It is definitely. I'm wearing a ring that's a huge eagle head.
Do you know what the eagle is representative of mythologically and symbolically?
I don't, but if I ask,
let's see.
What I'm hearing, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, is well, the first thing they said obviously is flight, and then they just said conqueror.
Yeah, they're on the right path. Zeus, eagles mythologically is associated with the divine masculine. Yeah.
Full circle.
Yeah. All right. And last question. What's a practical tip that has helped you in your life that you could share with people listening?
Can I share 2?
Yeah, share as many as you want.
One from them, which is, you would think it's an obvious one, but my guides just said breath. If everyone just took an extra moment to breathe in the morning, your whole world would change, and your day would get better and brighter and more concise, more consistent and concise. I don't know what the concise means, but I guess everyone can dive into that.
Concise makes sense.
For me, would be walking and movement. If you can walk for just 20 minutes out of your day, the downloads that you'll get, the revelations that you'll receive, it's going to blow your mind.
Yeah.
You're going to feel better in whatever mood you're in.
Yeah.
It's an activator. They just said also.
Yeah.
It's an activator, and it's also a drain. They just showed a drain. So you're activating energy, moving up, and then you're draining, and then you're draining what isn't needed.
Yes.
So it's a dual system.
Your guides are fucking on point.
Aren't they? They're so good.
Super duper on point. And if you're moving and you have the ability, listen to some music and let your unconscious do the shuffle.
Yes.
Do the shuffle. It's the best. Asia, thank you so much. We'll connect soon.
So much fun.
Yeah. Hope you enjoyed that episode. Asia, go check her out at Spirit Guide Coach on Instagram. Pretty much everywhere else you would ever want to find someone. Spirit House Collective, if you want to go visit the things she's helped create in person. She's the best. You can book a session with her. I don't know what else to say. You get it at this point, right? You get it? Yeah, you get it. Book a tarot session with me if it floats your boat. You know why I'm pushing this so hard? Not even the money. The money's nice. You got the money. It's fun to exchange it like that. It's so fucking fulfilling. It's to see people tap into their power and their lives and do it with conscious awareness of what's bubbling up from the unconscious. Like it's so great. Like I get why people wanted to be therapists and healers and all of these things. I don't know that I had the patience to go to school for that, but I see when the cards show people who they are, the kind of transmutation that takes place. It's amazing. So book that if it floats your boat. And that's it for this week. We will have solo cast and a guest next week and the week after that and the week after that. That's it. Happy imagining. Lots of love. Take care of yourselves too. Take care of yourselves. Self-care. Bye-bye.